Hello, welcome to B232 Principles of Marketing. Today we're going to be talking about pricing strategies. And my name is Shoma Jurgensen. I'm the chair of the School of Business at the Brooklyn Park campus of Rasmussen College. Before we get started with this particular unit, let's talk about the learning objectives for today's lesson. So at the end of this unit, you'll be able to, one, explain pricing's role in the marketing mix. If you recall from our readings, the traditional conception of the marketing mix is that there are 4 P's. Pricing is one of them, as is product, promotion, and place or distribution. Secondly, we're going to link the marketing objectives that we've been talking about to pricing objectives. Although these are 2 separate things, pricing objectives directly go to support marketing objectives. We'll also be defining 4 primary pricing strategies for each for-profit businesses and nonprofit businesses. It's important to note that nonprofit businesses need to pay attention to their pricing strategies as well. They are just looking at a different marketing outcome or a different business outcome. We'll also look at some alternate pricing strategies beyond the 4 that we'll look at for each for-profit or nonprofit that can be used in either case for either kind of business. And finally, you'll have an opportunity to practice what you learned by categorizing offerings into pricing strategies. And if you recall from our studies this quarter, instead of the word product, I'm using offering as a bundle of the physical product and the services offered by any organization. So let's take a look at some pricing basics. First, the price in the market mix is the only P that actually generates revenue. So what do I mean by this? Well, if you look at product and promotion and place, they all have one thing in common. They cost money. All right. It costs money to develop a product. It costs money to create advertising, to create sales materials, hire salespeople to sell it. Of course, if you're doing any promotional pricing, that will bring the cost down. Which is a pricing strategy. And then place, there is the cost of warehousing, moving your product from place to place in order to get it to the consumer. And sometimes you even have to pay slotting fees to retailers to showcase your product. Pricing, however, is directly connected to revenue. Okay, even if you have a sales promotion, that allowance or price discount goes into an expense category where the price or the money that you bring in for selling your offering goes into the revenue column. All right, not going to try and teach accounting here, but suffice it to say that it's very important to price your offering correctly to make sure you're meeting your marketing objectives. Right? And it is a very complex process. I'm going to be presenting it in a very straightforward manner today, but there is a lot that goes into determining the value that consumers will exchange for your offering. Now, in the traditional for-profit business model, that value, of course, is money. But there are other exchanges of value that can be considered, particularly in the nonprofit world. So let's take a look at some of these marketing objectives, okay? First of all, if you are a startup company, you'll often find that your marketing objective is simply to stay in business. And this is called survival, right? Very, very simple, but not easy concept. So your pricing is created in order to cover your variable costs and some of your fixed costs in order to stay in business to the point where you are making a profit at some point. All right, you're keeping your prices fairly low, but you don't want to keep them so low that you get into, 1, legal trouble for undercutting prices, or 2, you need to understand where it fits in terms of what your competitors are offering, because you don't want to devalue your offering and you don't want to be higher than your competitors as you're trying to build a name for yourself and survive in the industry. And again, this is often the strategy that startups use. A profit objective is what we typically consider when we think of the price that a consumer pays for an offering. You choose the price that creates the maximum profit. One way you'll see this in retail is setting a target return. That means that there's X amount of money that you want to make whenever you sell a product. One way to do this is a markup. So if it costs you X amount of money to make your product, you might add 30%, ensuring that you get a target return of 30% on your price. What you're trying to do here is keep your prices in line and your costs in line in such a way that you're making a margin, a profit that meets your objectives for your business and your business outcomes. Right? Another way to look at pricing is pricing for volume. Right? This is when you're using pricing to increase sales volume. So you're not as worried about every little thing you sell because you make more money with volume. Right? This is really true of Walmart. Walmart knows that it takes a lower margin. Its prices are less. And a margin here, margin is another way to say profit. Okay? So they know that overall they're going to make less profit than, for example, on their clothes JCPenney will. However, they know that they can increase their sales volume with their pricing strategy, and since they sell more, they make more. This is one way to maintain or increase your market share. So if you look at your market and at this X amount of dollars, you have about a quarter of the market. If you drop your price by 1 or 2%, you might be able to gain more of that market or sell more volume and increase your market share. All right. Another reason to have a volume objective, and again, Walmart is in this category, is that you're trying to create a high obstacle for competitors. All right. If you know that your competitor does not control their costs as well as you do, therefore can't price a little bit lower to sell more, it's going to make it less attractive for that competitor and to enter your market. Now, there is another way to think about this, and that is that product quality makes a difference. So in this case, you're charging, sometimes just immediately, high prices to cover higher performance quality, research and development, and branding. You will often see that drug manufacturers for prescriptions will certainly increase the price of their drug because of all the research and development that goes into it. When you look at branding, you'll notice that, for example, branded cereals through General Mills, who are fantastic marketers, are going to cost more than a store brand cereal or a price brand cereal like the ones that come in the bags. All right, so they're going to say, hey, yes, it's just all corn, but we're going to charge more because we know that there is a performance, a marketing, a branding quality that consumers are willing to pay. Another reason to set your prices high, and this is kind of out of the cereal category, but it's to develop and maintain an image of quality and exclusivity. If you look at designer brands, this is what they do. They're not going to charge a lower price and sell in a discount warehouse because they want to maintain that image and that exclusivity that their consumers are willing to pay more money for. So let's look at some for-profit pricing strategies. And if you look here, the marketing strategies are predominant. You have quality, right, which we talked about, and price. But you've got two different options here. You're either pricing for, here you've got profit with skimming and premium pricing, or you're pricing for volume with penetration and economy pricing. All right, so let's take a look at what some of these mean. First of all, economy pricing is that low price, low quality. It's cheap stuff, right, that you can buy a lot of and you don't worry about it so much if it breaks or you need to replace it because it's cheap and you'll just buy more. All right, so low price, low quality, high volume. Premium pricing, and I'm kind of looking at these extremes right now, either the premium or the economy, and the premium pricing will have a high price for a high quality good. All right, so here you're looking at, for example, designer shoes. Okay, you know that it's high quality, you're willing to pay the high price as a consumer, and the business knows that they're looking for profit and image. Okay, they're not going for volume. You're not going to sell as many high-priced shoes as you will at Payless Shoe Source, but that's okay because Payless makes it up on volume. All right, so that's where we look at penetration. Now, although penetration is included in the high quality, low price, it doesn't always mean like the lowest price. Okay, you have good quality and you have a low price for it, so you're creating a value. All right, you want to make sure that you are selling enough to penetrate the market or have more consumers in your market that choose your good. Right, so that's like the pie chart that I showed you before, where you're getting a little bit more of the slice of the pie. Okay. You're going for volume here because the more someone buys of your product, increasing the share of your pie, the less they're buying of your competitor's product, which is what you want. Okay. Skimming is a profit objective, and although it says low quality, high price, it's kind of in that quadrant is limited. It's actually good quality stuff with a high price. Now, why would you do this? Okay, if I'm saying here that it's a profit motive, what you're trying to do is if you're an innovative company, you get your innovation out there, for example, the first time a digital phone came out. Okay, or let's use the Wii for an example. First time the Wii comes out, nobody has anything like it. All right, the Wii comes out at a much higher price than it is today because they know it's going to take, Nintendo knows it's going to take their competitors some time to figure out the technology and start selling their own. While that gap is in place, they want to make as much money as they can because they know at some point their margin, their profit margin, is going to decline because competitors are going to catch up. Okay? And so the skimming strategy you will often see in electronics, things that have very short product life cycles. All right, from beginning to when competitors come in is a fairly short amount of time. Now, nonprofits look at pricing differently, but they still need to seriously consider pricing. First of all, there is a market incentive. Okay, so if an organization has the mission, for example, to reduce urban congestion, to raise awareness for environmental practices like not having every single person drive a car to work. For example, public transit, they might have a low price to encourage use. All right, so that's what market incentive means here. All right, to keep prices low to encourage use. And since this is a nonprofit organization, they have to make up the cost somewhere if it's costing them money to provide the service. Typically, these costs are made up through well, in case of public transit, taxes. If you have a nonprofit organization that gets grants and donations and things like that, you will find that they're subsidized that way. Another pricing objective for a nonprofit is cost recovery. All right, it costs nonprofits money to put their services out there, and the degree to which an organization wants to either fully recoup those costs or partially recoup those costs is going to determine their pricing. For example, a private university might have the marketing or pricing objective to fully recoup just their basic costs, and everything else is either subsidized or goes to charity, etc. There are times when nonprofit organizations are going to want to maximize profit. They're rare. They're typically event specific. A really good example of this are fundraisers with like $100 a plate fundraisers, or a fundraiser where they're selling a table and they're charging like 80 bucks per seat, and it's a table of 8 or 10, and so they're making X amount of money, and that money is going toward funding their services and their mission. Okay, and there are volume objectives as well. For example, the Minnesota Orchestra has the objective that they want to either fully or partially cover their costs by ensuring that their concerts are as completely attended as possible. So they're not going to price their tickets the same as the hottest new band that's in town getting $150 a ticket, or the skyboxes at the TCF Stadium. They want to keep it so that the seats get filled and part of their costs are recouped so that they can fulfill their mission of bringing classical music to new generations. There are alternative pricing strategies, and these kind of go under each other. First is promotional strategy. All right, so this is a shorter term strategy. For example, a sale. If you go to Payless shoe stores, you might find a BOGO sale, right? Buy one, get one. This isn't a long-term strategy. This is something that's used to boost sales in a short amount of time to increase volume, but not necessarily profit, all right, because you're cutting your prices. There's a geographical pricing strategy that says that there is a variation in demand and or operational costs, okay? So we're Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. We're quite a ways away from the coasts. So if I go to Red Lobster and order a lobster tail, it's going to cost me a lot more for that lobster tail than if I bought it in Maine. Why? Because someone has to bring it inland to me, and that costs money, right? Another variation in geography and pricing is a variation in demand. For example, it costs a whole lot more to buy real estate in Japan where there is a limited amount of real estate available, right? But if you're looking for real estate in a more rural area, you will get a lot more for your price because there's less demand for it. Right? Finally, there are external factors that can play a role in creating value pricing. And this tends to be a little bit longer term. This is not the same as a sales promotion. Things like a recession or an increase in competition can cause, for example, a fast food restaurant to create a value menu. All right, because they know that maybe someone doesn't want to spend $5 for every meal, but they'd be willing to spend $1 on a snack or to supplement a meal. So they can continue to increase their volume through that value pricing. Okay. Target, this isn't their official logo, of course, but Target now has these aisles where you can buy $1 goods. All right. That's a long-term thing for them. That's not a sale. They constantly have these dollar items when you go through these aisles. And it's to encourage more volume, all right, for people to buy more in their stores, to add on to what they're already buying. Now, again, I want to say how closely linked price is to the other three P's, all right? The character of your product, so how much money it takes to make it, how well you are controlling costs, will have an impact on your price. All right. Your promotion, how much you spend on promotion will determine how much you need to price your product for and how much a consumer is maybe willing to spend on your product. And certainly place will have an impact. I know that it costs like $1.25 to get a candy bar in the vending machines, which is one channel of distribution at my school. However, I can go to a Walgreens and buy a 4-pack or a bag of little chocolate bars where the whole thing costs me maybe $3, $4. So the distribution channel also plays a role in what you price that particular good for. So now here's your chance to give yourself a try at figuring out where you might strategically place certain offerings. All right, so I would like you to take this list and write next to it whether you think it would be an A, B, C, D, E, F, or G. All right, and so Walmart store brand soup, Hampton Inn tries to fill rooms in the winter, iPad 3, Subway promotes a dollar breakfast menu, Lexus Coach Edition, 2-bedroom apartment in New York, a new fitness center opens and needs to increase market share. Each of these elements corresponds to one particular pricing strategy. Let's see how well you do. Thank you very much and look forward to talking with you more about marketing.